Hello and welcome to our tutorial. This is sort of an unusual tutorial. We're going to look at doing some work directly on our phones, so using the cameras on our phones. So what you can see here on the screen is a free piece of software that I've installed onto my phone, and now what I'm doing is I'm casting my phone screen up onto my computer screen and recording it. So all of the controls that we can see here, I can see on the screen of my phone. So if I want to take a photo, I press this button here, so I can do touch screen, or I can use my mouse here to take a photo. And what we're going to have a look at today is this piece of software, which is for Android. We'll be looking at an Apple equivalent in another tutorial. And what we're going to do is just look at some of the basic functions that you can do with this free piece of software on your phone. So the first thing we're going to look at is a couple of these icons here at the bottom of the screen. So the first one is a light bulb, and it's to do with the color in the image. So I'm pointing my camera at a very dark bookshelf. So you can see a whole bunch of books and DVDs here. So if I press this icon here, I get a list of other icons that I can select. So I'm going to pick this one here, which is going to be the sun, which is outdoors. And when I click it, everything changes color, and that's the camera trying to compensate for being outside. So it expects all of the light outside to be blue from the sun, and because we're not outside, we're indoors with orange light, the whole image is turned orange. We can turn it to this setting here, AWB, which is auto white balance, and the camera will work it out itself. Or we can move to, this is fluorescent, and finally we can go back to what we had, which was tungsten, and then this last one is outside on a cloudy day. So sometimes you'll want the camera just to be left on automatic and let the camera work it out itself, and sometimes you'll want to select to kind of force the camera to set the colors up a certain way. So I'm going to leave it on indoor, which is this sort of light bulb icon here. Now the next icon is for focus. Now there's lots of different ways to focus on a phone. Most of the time you have your camera on autofocus. So if I click here, we have a whole bunch of kind of presets. This one here that the mouse is on is for a face. This is for macro photography if you're up very, very close. And the one that we have selected is called manual focus. So, and this AF here is autofocus. So manual focus is quite cool. So we can basically put our finger on the screen and shift up or shift down, and as we do that, the image will go in or out of focus. So we can focus the camera on our phone manually to make sure that the image is in focus. Now sometimes we'll just leave it on autofocus and the camera will do the job correctly. But if, say, for example, you had someone's face here on the left and a landscape on the right, so the camera wasn't sure which object to focus on, then putting it into manual focus gives you control over the camera. So literally you put your finger on the screen and then you either swipe up or swipe down and select just by eye what looks best, what is a sharp focus. We're going to skip this one for now. This is called metering. We'll come back to that. It's how the phone selects brightness and darkness. But we're going to click on this one here, which is ISO. Now the ISO is basically, it says sensor sensitivity. It's also like a quality setting. At a very high ISO, the image will get very grainy, so I'll put on 800, but it also gets much brighter. So if you were shooting in a very dark location, if you were in a pub or something like that, you might want to up your ISO because the environment would be very dark. But when you do that, you lose quality. So what you're trying to constantly do is be at the lowest ISO you can, so say 100, but not be too dark. So in this instance here, our ISO is too low, so we might go up to say 200, and that's not quite so bad. So we're kind of at a compromise between brightness and quality. And then finally, we have this little icon here, which is plus and minus, which relates to this little meter here. So what we can do is this is adding brightness and darkness to the image. So if I slide this little red counter to the left, the image will get darker, and if I slide it to the right, the image will get slightly brighter. So this is sort of like an exposure assistant, so we can decide this is the brightness the phone thinks the image should be, and then we can tweak it brighter or tweak it darker. So we're going to install this software on our phones in class, and we're going to have a look at these settings. So our white balance, so to set the colors correctly, we're going to look at different types of focus. We're going to look at the sensor sensitivity, or the quality setting as ISO, and we're going to look at this one here, which is exposure compensation, which is making things slightly brighter, slightly darker. Okay, that's enough for now.